General Hospital's Chris McKenna reveals he has bipolar disorder, was diagnosed after a manic psychotic episode. For decades, General Hospital has told stories of emotional extremes, love and betrayal, triumph and tragedy, through the lives of its characters. Now, one of its familiar faces is bravely stepping out from behind the script to share a deeply personal truth of his own. Chris McKenna, best known to daytime audiences for his compelling performances on General Hospital and other long-running soaps, has revealed that he lives with bipolar disorder. In an exclusive and deeply candid conversation, the actor shared that his diagnosis came only after experiencing what he describes as a manic psychotic episode, a life-altering moment that forced him to confront the reality of his mental health for the first time. McKenna's decision to speak publicly is not about shock value or sympathy. It is about honesty, awareness, and hope. A breaking point that could no longer be ignored. For years, McKenna believed he was simply intense, driven, and emotionally expressive, qualities often celebrated in actors. Periods of boundless energy and creativity felt like gifts rather than warning signs. He would sleep little, talk rapidly, and feel invincible, convinced he was operating on a higher frequency than everyone else. "I thought that was just who I was," McKenna admits. "I didn't see it as illness, I saw it as passion." That perception shattered when a manic episode escalated into psychosis. Thoughts became fragmented, reality blurred, paranoia and grandiosity collided, leaving him frightened and disoriented. What began as an unstoppable surge of energy spiraled into something dangerous and uncontrollable. "I wasn't myself anymore," he recalls. "I couldn't tell what was real. That's when everything changed." The episode ultimately led to medical intervention, and finally, a diagnosis that explained years of emotional highs and devastating lows. Understanding bipolar disorder beyond the stereotypes. Bipolar disorder is often misunderstood, reduced to clichés of moodiness or erratic behavior. McKenna hopes his story helps dismantle those misconceptions. "People think bipolar means you're happy one minute and sad the next," he says. "That's not what it is. It's extreme states that hijack your thinking, your judgment, your identity." For McKenna, manic episodes brought intense confidence, racing thoughts, and reckless decision-making. Depressive phases, by contrast, were heavy, isolating, and suffocating, periods when even basic tasks felt impossible. Looking back, he recognizes patterns he once dismissed: burned bridges, impulsive choices, creative bursts followed by emotional crashes. The diagnosis didn't erase the pain of those moments, but it finally gave them context. "It was devastating and relieving at the same time," he explains. "Devastating because it meant this wasn't going away, relieving because I finally knew what I was dealing with." The cost of silence in Hollywood. In an industry that thrives on image, vulnerability can feel like a liability. McKenna admits he wrestled with fear before going public, fear of being labeled difficult, unstable, or unreliable. "There's still a stigma, especially in this business," he says. "You worry people won't trust you with a role." For years, that fear kept him silent, but silence came at a cost. Without proper treatment, the cycles continued, affecting his relationships, career choices, and sense of self-worth. Eventually, McKenna realized that hiding was more damaging than telling the truth. "If I can play complex characters on screen," he says, "then I should be able to live honestly off-screen." Healing is not linear, but it is possible. Since his diagnosis, McKenna has committed to treatment, including therapy, medication, and lifestyle changes. He is careful not to romanticize the journey. "There's no cure," he says plainly. "There's management, there's accountability, there's work." Some days are easier than others. There are moments of frustration, grief for the years lost to misdiagnosis, and lingering shame about past behavior. But there is also stability, clarity, and a growing sense of peace. "For the first time, I feel like I'm steering the ship instead of being dragged by the storm," he reflects. McKenna emphasizes that seeking help is not a sign of weakness, especially for men, who are often conditioned to suppress emotional pain. We're taught to push through, tough it out, he says, but bipolar disorder doesn't care how tough you are. Why speaking out matters. By sharing his story, McKenna hopes to reach people who may be suffering in silence, particularly those who don't recognize their symptoms as illness. If someone reads this and thinks, "That sounds like me," then it's worth it, he says. Mental health advocates have praised McKenna's openness, noting that public figures speaking honestly can save lives. When someone admired and respected acknowledges vulnerability, it creates space for others to do the same. Awareness leads to early intervention, McKenna adds, and early intervention can change everything. A new chapter, on and off screen. Today, McKenna continues to work, create, and tell stories, now with a deeper understanding of himself. He brings that awareness into his performances, channeling emotion with intention rather than chaos. "I'm still passionate," he says with a smile. "I'm just healthier about it." His hope is simple: that bipolar disorder will one day be discussed with the same openness as physical illness, free from judgment or fear. "This doesn't define me," McKenna says, "but it's part of my story, and I'm done pretending otherwise." In stepping into the light with honesty and courage, Chris McKenna reminds us that the most powerful performances aren't always on screen. Sometimes, they happen when someone chooses truth over silence, and in doing so, helps others find their way back to themselves.